so bad they're funny days of American politics and our place in the world during the early Bush years? I speak, of course, of the era of the freedom fry.
I'm delighted that Chairman Ney read the letter and thought that it might be worthy of consideration to rename the French fries on the House side in our restaurants the freedom fries. It says update, now serving in all House office building, freedom fries.
That was 2003 when French fries were bad and freedom fries were American. Congressman Walter Jones of North Carolina led that rebranding effort as a way to punish France for not going along with the preventive war in Iraq. Even Congressman Jones later admitted that that idea was a bad one and said he wished it had never happened. The freedom fries kerfuffle is illustrative because it's one of those embarrassing moments that with a few years distance, no one wants to admit that it ever happened. No one wants to admit, even if it happened, that they ever played a role in it, that they ever supported it. It's kind of like it's kind of like the Macarena. Not a figment of your imagination. It actually happened. But if you ask around now, even if people will admit that it was a craze, no one will admit to have actually having done it themselves. Never. Not once. I know I didn't do it, ever. Sure, other people did it, but nobody I know. As with freedom fries, it was a craze, of course, but nobody remembers participating in it. But it turns out that President Obama's speech in Cairo yesterday, aside from all its global policy implications, at the same time had the magical power to expose American political figures who are still metaphorically living in the era of the freedom fry. Topping the list, Republican Senator Jim Inhofe of Oklahoma, who told one newspaper that the president's speech was, quote, un-American, and said of the president, quote, I just don't know whose side he's on. Jim Inhofe, arbiter of what's American and what's un-American. First exhibit of un-American, the President of the United States. It's very convincing. And of course, Liz Cheney, the daughter of the former vice president, was available on TV to comment, though not on this show. Here's her sharing her views.
To go to Cairo and to accuse the United States of falling short of its values just strikes me as, you know, a real blow and very disappointing.
If torture works is one of your primary American values, I can see why a speech against torture might be disappointing. All of this makes me desperately want to take Jim Inhofe and the Cheney family out for freedom fries to see if they would even flinch at the reference. Joining us now is Ana Marie Cox, national correspondent for Air America and a contributor to Playboy magazine. Hi, Ana Marie. Nice to see you.
Hey, Rachel.
Does this all reflect a strategy of opposition to the president, or is this what happens when there isn't a strategy? You just sort of retreat and yell un-American, un-American as you go.
I gotta say, this sounds like a non-strategy to me, and I'm just gonna correct myself from last time and say they're all grabbing for the conch, not the conch. It is the Lord of the Flies period. We have to just be careful about being around them when they have their sharp, pointy sticks in their hand. But they're really, Inhofe is not exactly a leader or a thinker on the Republican side, so I don't think he's responding to any talking points. I think this is a little bit of freelancing on his side, and he really is the only elected Republican that I can think of that's making this kind of crazy accusation.
Well, elaborate that on a little bit, because I think that Inhofe's standing in the Republican Party is important to understanding what's going on in the Republican Party when we see him do something so extreme like this. Because if he is just an outlier who says stuff and has no connection to anything, that's one thing. But maybe he's a harbinger of things that elected Republicans are going to say soon, but nobody's ready to do it yet except Senator Inhofe. Maybe he's the trial balloon.
I think you could see him as a trial balloon. I love that image, by the way. But I don't think it's a strategy. I mean, I think that he does have connections. He's not a total crazy person. But this is a lack of leadership that we're seeing. This is not a strategy. It's not like someone told him, "Hey, Inhofe, why don't you go and say this nutty thing, and we'll see what happens." He might actually believe this, as bizarre as that may sound. You know what really strikes me about this, though, Rachel, is that I can't imagine the Democrats acting this way when George Bush was at 60% and hugely popular and gallivanting around the world saying nutty things. Or, sorry, not that Obama was saying nutty things, but Democrats tend to just knuckle under. in the reverse situation. And Inhofe went out and said this insane thing. And then he has these other people like Liz Cheney, your Newt Gingriches and your Rush Limbaughs of the world also echoing it. I cannot think of a similar situation on the Democrat side.
Well, there is this dynamic, though, on the right, both encompassing Republicans and just conservatives, in which the majority of the really extreme anti-Obama language is coming from people who are not elected. I mean, Jim Inhofe, as we're sort of describing here, is the exception to this. But I wonder if that is a bad thing for the party, because it puts all the elected Republicans in the position of having to answer for Rush Limbaugh, Newt Gingrich, Liz Cheney, and the rest of them, and they can pop off sort of without any accountability.
Well, you don't see a lot of elected officials like rushing to the aid of Newt Gingrich or Rush Limbaugh right now. I think, like I said, I think that what you're seeing here is disorganization. If this was an orchestrated activity, I think actually it would make more sense. I think what you're seeing is individual Republican senators looking to protect their seats in the midterms, and you're seeing the vacuum being filled by the loudest voices in the room, which happen to include Rush Limbaugh and Newt Gingrich. The man, Newt Gingrich, he is saying some of the most unpopular things a person can say. His opinions on Sotomayor, I think, polled at like 9% approval rating. If that's his bid for a comeback, go for it, Newt. Like, way to go. I will follow you on Twitter as long as you do that.
And I'll keep talking about him on the television. I mean,
yes, let's do that.
I have this, just as a programming thing, I mean, there's this issue of all the face time that Liz Cheney is getting, all the discussion time that Rush Limbaugh get, that Newt Gingrich get, that Mitt Romney gets, that Mike Huckabee gets. I mean, these people don't have jobs.
Don't put them on the TV, Rachel. Like, well, I don't want to tell you how to do your job, but come on. I mean, if the Rachel Maddow Show staff, many of whom you know, we sit around all day and talk about whether or not we should put folks on the air. But in terms of the political debate that's happening in the country, it's just not being engaged in by elected Republicans. The only people who are talking from the right are these folks who I'd prefer not to put on TV because they don't have jobs and I shouldn't feel obligated. I think that you would find discussions with elected officials to be different than the ones that you hear from Liz Cheney and Newt Gingrich and Rush Limbaugh. They probably would not be as extreme. I've talked to a few people, not necessarily elected officials, but their staffers. People are concerned about this. I think there is a certain amount of indecision about what to say in public, and the default option is not to say anything. And that is creating this vacuum where these people are stepping in. I think that someone needs to come up and start talking on behalf of the center of the party, the center of the Republican Party, I should say, and start representing what I think people who still call themselves Republican, there aren't a lot of them, but there are some, actually believe. And I think there is a strong intellectual argument, or at least an intellectual argument, on the opposition of some of the things Obama's doing. I believe in conservatism as sort of a philosophy and principle. It's not being articulated by the people that we're seeing on TV a lot right now.
Ana Marie Cox, national correspondent for Air America, contributor to Playboy. A special thank you, actually, from the Rachel Maddow Show staff for sending us the video of you doing the Macarena to disprove our point today. I really appreciate it. Yes, thank you. All right.